our OLOC Zoom crew. JR is one of our techs today, and Janet, and also several other people are here, which is great, who can help if help is needed. So I'm going to introduce our speaker today, who's Sid Reger. And let's see. Okay, so Sid Reger, who identifies as an Earth Crone, is an artist and scholar of goddess mythology. She teaches about myth and prehistory for the Women's Theological Institute, and she's president of the Association for the Study of Women and Mythology. Sid.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It's a real pleasure to be here. Let me start out by saying that. I just love spending time with you all. It doesn't happen as often as I would like to have it do, but this is as good as an excuse as any. So let me say a few things about myself first, so we've got a context for this discussion, which is that I am, among other hats that I wear, an ordained priestess of the Reformed Congregation of the Goddess International, which sounds like a mouthful, and it took me a long time to get there, so that's why I remember the entire title. And my background is in adult education and the study of mythology, and I've had a lifelong interest in archaeology. So putting all of that together is a way of just saying that I'll probably mention RCGI, Reformed Congregation of the Goddess, a time or two here. And if you hear me mention it, it's not an advertisement. It's just telling you where this information comes from. And it is also in some ways a sister organization to OLOC in that it is based on blood mysteries, and the RCG congregation is and its education programs, the major programs are limited to women-born women. So I'm only saying that because if it's important outside of this context to let you know that there's another organization out there that's kind of holding a line on that and still maintaining a respectful relationship with everybody. Okay. The other thing I'm going to say is just about the fact that I have, clearly, I've been doing a little sneezing, and I have it's seasonal allergies. So if I mute myself and go sneeze, you'll know why. And the other thing is that, you know, the thing about being a woman of our age is that we things happen that bring you where you're supposed to be. And I think it's interesting that here I am talking about Crohn's, and last night, when for some reason I still don't understand, a filling fell off of my front tooth, so now I look a little bit like a snaggle-toothed old crone, and that's fine. And it made me laugh, so I hope it makes everybody else laugh, because I figure at my age, there's nothing wrong with poking a hole in my sense of vanity anyway. As long as it doesn't poke a hole in my sanity, I should be okay. So here we go. And what I'm going to do is introduce a concept to you of what a crone is. We have some ideas, and some people think, well, you know, it's one of those things that goddess women do and nobody else does. No, all kinds of folks do it now. And it's got its own following and its own organizations and that kind of thing. So let's take a quick look at the first slide, please. And these are the kinds of things we hear about women of a certain age, right? And this is what is often said about Crohn's, and has been said since the time of the Renaissance, probably, when the term first appeared, and it has its own little history here. But look, it's an ugly old woman. A crone's an ugly old woman. She's a disagreeable old woman. She's a monstrous, wicked hag. She's a useless person, a malicious, manipulative woman, a witch who could be either helpful or harmful to you. And she serves as a warning about nonconformance. So the thing I want to say about that is, first of all, that I'm always poking holes in what is been a given in one way or another. So I consider myself a disagreeable old woman. And I'd like to disagree with a couple things before the end of this presentation. So, let's take a quick look at the group for a second, Kathy. And what does anybody have a response to this? What do you think about that? Have you in your mind somewhere, have you seen any of these things, or in the movies or any place else where the old woman is the unreliable, scary old human?
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, I've heard a crone is a witch and usually doesn't menstruate anymore. But
Yeah.
the witch is the primary thing.
You're right. She's also postmenopausal, but yeah. Anybody else have a thought on that? But the idea of associating them with witches, it's not merely around Halloween. It's one of those things that has been camped onto what we think about old women for a long time. Anything else? Anybody respond to those? Let me say just one thing about the origin of the term, which it's from some kind of French, and it's from the same origin as the word carrion.
Ooh.
If that, yeah, doesn't that pinch just a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Here we are being compared to carrion in some way. Now, since then, of course, since the second wave feminism, so many women have reclaimed this, and they've taken it all back and done different things with it. And that is just the way it ought to be. We ought to be able to reclaim something that's put on us in the same way that a lot of us reclaimed the word lesbian, which didn't really exist in our vocabularies for a very long time, until we realized that until the women's movement started to make looking at language a really important piece of our personal learning and our political commitments. So at least that's what I think happened. So yeah, we've got all of those disagreeable qualities. Let's look at the second. So let's see what Crone really boils down to then. Look at our second slide, Kathy. I'm going to make her jump around and do all kinds of stuff here. There you go. There. So out of second wave feminism and out of goddess movements, pagan movements, various kinds of movements, came this notion that there are three stages of a woman's life. She is either a maiden, a mother, or a crone. Now, the maiden is the girl who is prepubescent. She can't give birth. She's a girl. The mother is of childbearing years. And the crone, as we said, is postmenopausal. So the issue to me is then, does this cover us? Does this explain us? And if anybody has a comment and we're not looking at the entire group, you can just unmute yourself and speak up, because I want this to be as much of a dialogue as we can. So does this suit you?
Well, I don't like the picture at all.
No, I'm not crazy about the picture either. For one thing, I'm not sure which one's the mother. I think she's the one on the left, but she's not a whole lot older than the maiden. What don't you like about the picture? Anybody want to say anything about that?
Yeah, for me, nobody's smiling.
Yeah, what's the matter with these people? And they're all conventionally nice looking white women, which is fine, I suppose. But what does it say about us? And does it say enough about who we are? So that's go ahead.
Sid, this is Mev. My reflection is that as a lesbian, I don't really relate to mother at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a mother, never wanted to be a mother. I could say I'm a mother of a lot of projects. I'm a creator of many things, but not typically thinking of myself as mother. So it seems like there is another description. I don't know if it's a stage, because it sort of assumes that women are going to be mothers when we have it in this particular language, maiden, mother, crone. It just assumes that we're going to be mothers, and many of us are not. And so I really like to gravitate toward the crone because I'm a crone and a hag and all those kinds of things right now. So
right, because you're at that point now where you can embrace that part and give up the other piece that didn't fit anyway. You know, I was in graduate school before I realized that some lesbians actually had children. You know, I mean, I don't want to say I was naive, but I was naive. You know, everybody I knew was about my age, and they were, like you said, we weren't the least bit interested in becoming mothers. Just didn't fit. But of course, it had fit for a lot of women and does fit for a lot of women. And what about the maiden? Anybody want to say anything about the maiden? She seems like a long way off sometimes, especially when my filling falls out. Okay, let's.
I-
Go ahead.
I would like to say quick about they're all wearing a headscarf, which, you know, is sort of a way to put a specific kind of image, and one that's kind of more hidden. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And their hair is all long, and they're all, yeah, it's all too similar or standard or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really, you
Too
know,
traditional images. Yeah.
yeah, really, really pretty, you know, whatever. And it's the kind of picture I look at and I say, I wonder if a woman took that or if a guy took that. So, you know, I'm just asking. Because there are differences. We do see things differently. And the male lens has captured us most of the time, especially in art, when you look at what pictures of old women are like. All right. So now let's take this assumption that we've got. Maiden, mother, crone fits us. And I see that someone said the stage of mother only means, but I can't see the rest of the chat. Where'd it go?
Of childbearing years and women who have menses.
Yeah.
In ancient matriarchs, not all women in the mother age range had children.
Exactly. And not all do now. And so mother was at one point a kind of a specific stage of women's lives, but we've kind of, in our culture, we've kind of broadened the whole thing out to make it sort of include lots of different kinds of mothering behaviors. Now, I have some good things to say about that at some point. Mothering oneself, yes, absolutely, we can mother ourselves. And we'll get to that one in a few minutes too. Great. So, but anyway, here we are. Let's say we're in the second wave feminism, and the academic feminists are out there, and they're at odds with the goddess feminists because they think we're too radical, which of course we are. And the academic feminists did, however, latch on to this one idea. And some of them wrote about the idea of being a crone, becoming a crone, moving into your crone phase of life. And it was pretty much accepted that this was a theory that fit women's lives. Kathy, can I have the next slide now? However, let us reconsider. In 1948, a guy named Robert Graves, who was a poet, he was a poet and a mythologist, and he traveled around a lot and thought a lot about mythology, but he admitted that this was a book of a poetic point of view about myth. So he was not trying to say this was history, but he wrote this book called The White Goddess, which was one of the first books that really took female deities seriously. And he took her very seriously. And he said, you know, there was in ancient Europe, there was this one 3-part goddess who ruled over all of everything. Remember, he's a poet and he's putting this together. And she could be either a maiden or a mother or a crone. Now, he did borrow some of these ideas from a poet, an American woman poet whose last name I have just now forgotten. But he got more press. And this book was quite popular. And you can see in the background here, even of this image, which is from Crete, there's 3 priestesses or goddesses or something dancing or doing something together, probably dancing. And so the idea of triple goddesses was around. It's been around for a long time, but they are not maiden, mother, crone. They might be 3 different phases of Hecate, who was a goddess of the crossroads, who was also the tender of the dead. She took care of the grieving dead. And she was also a healing goddess. So the idea of 3, and they must be maiden, mother, crone, comes down to me now. And I think when I think about Graves, I think about, once again, that male lens. That, you know what? Are we not looking at women's lives here from the point of view of whether or not they can give birth? Right? Mother is a phase. Maiden is the phase of waiting until you get to the point that you can actually give birth. And crone is the phase that occurs after you have passed the point where you can give birth. But his point was to try to put all women into that category, into those categories. So what do you think? Any response to that? Thank you very much, Robert. We've already said, as lesbians, many of us didn't relate to the mother phase of living. So the question becomes, is it just 3 phases of living? Where do crones fit in? And are we all to be, once again, I mean, it feels remarkably like the arguments about reproductive freedom that are going on right now, where some people are kind of really trying to decide women's lives based on their ability to bear children and desire to bear children. So how does that differ? So anyway, Robert set us up. He did us some favors, but maybe not all of them. So let's look at the next slide. All right. So maybe instead of 3 phases of our lives or more, it's not phases. Maybe it's not phases. Maybe we're participating in what modern psychology and many other fields would call an archetype. What the heck is an archetype? It's a psychological pattern or an image that symbolizes basic human behaviors and motivations. Let me read the whole thing. A fundamental psychological pattern or image, or a universal mythic character or condition that symbolizes basic human behaviors and motivations. So, a fundamental psychological pattern. Can you think of anything that might fit in that? You know, like, what about the, is there something about a type of mother, a nurturing mother? Would a nurturing mother be, oh, a warrior? Thank you, Sally. Yeah, a warrior, an Amazon, a warrior. A universal mythic character that symbolizes basic human behaviors and motivations. So you can read the story of a woman warrior. Maybe somebody like Lozen, who was the Apache. You can read the story of a woman warrior, and in her case, she really did exist. She's not merely an archetype. She was a historical archetype. And look at it and draw from it the parts of basic human behaviors and motivations that affect you. You can make it work for you. In other words, it's a story. Goddess of the wild things. Thank you. Yes. Yes. And there's the goddess of the animals, the goddess of wild things. There's goddesses of chaos. There are, like Kali, who is the one who comes in. Jade River always used to say she's the one who takes out the trash. but she's the one who comes in and brings everything to a conclusion. So this is not, it sounds like to me, it always sounds like a concept we did water goddesses. Yes, indeedy. Ooh. And so many different kinds. So we can learn from these, and that's part of the point. The point is they're available to us. And just to give you another illustration of how they work, next slide, please, Kathy. Okay. We're going to pretend that these two objects are sitting in a toolkit somewhere. And somebody says to you, you're standing next to the toolkit, and they say, hand me the prickly one. Hand me the prickly one. Which one are you going to reach for?
The one on the left.
Yeah. It's got jagged stickers, or it's a shape with stickers around the outer edges. How about if they said, hand me that splashy thing? Same thing, the one on the other side. The splashy thing is kind of soft around the edges, but it's so it's just indeterminate. So the point being that archetypes aren't merely stories. Some of them are what we see. And that's one reason I always think we have to be really pretty careful about the things we invite into our lives that we see. You know, like, do we really want to read all the same magazines with all the same images of women? Or do we want to find some other way to figure out what archetypes women have? Any thoughts about this? Does this make sense? Great. All right, next slide. Now, let's toss in some others. I'm giving you a, you're right, Jane, we're going to create our own here. Are these archetypes or life stages? There's one that's the daughter. Now see the ones in red over here in this left-hand column are the original ones we started with. Those are Robert, thank you very much, Graves. Maiden, Mother, and Crone. But along with that list, there's a bunch of others that are added in a book. I gave you all a link to a handout. You'll get it once or twice during this session so that you can be sure to get it. It'll be in the chat. But it's a book by Davis and Leonard. It says 13 archetypes for women's lives. So they start out with the daughter. She's a child, for heaven's sakes. She's not a maiden. She's not prepubescent, really. She's a child. She's a little girl. Then there's the maiden. Then there's the blood sister, who is the one that you form your bonds with in adolescence and past. And look there, there's our warrior Amazon. She's another archetype. Mother, midwife, matriarch, sorceress, priestess, crone, and transformer. So those are the ones they set up. Now, do any of these sound familiar to anybody? Does anybody identify with any of these? I mean, sometimes I'm an Amazon,
Sister, blood sister.
Blood sister, yeah. I would say that this is kind of a group of blood sisters, right? That because we're bonded to each other in ways that cut across a lot of other lines, even geographic. Okay, ooh, seer, I like it. I like it. And she might be not the same thing as the sorceress or the transformer, but the seer would be the woman who sees through to the truth. So that's a good addition. And I added a couple of others just because I know women like these. I know women who participate in these. Sacred clown. I've got at least one friend who, if the discussion is getting too heavy, if the people are getting to be at odds with each other, she's going to do something really silly. And it defuses the situation. Trickster, this is your coyote. This is the coyote that tricks you. You think you're going one way and then something happens that you weren't counting on, like your filling falls out. Mentor teacher, right? That's part of that relationship, or you can be both at once. You can be a mentor to someone and a teacher in the same way, and they can be sort of an apprentice at the same time. Sovereign is one. I'm going to add seer to this. That's really good. Mama Donna Hennis also added, she said, Maiden, Mother, Crone don't do it. What about Queen? What about that part of your life where you're not doing those mother things anymore? You've stepped past that and you have a lot of autonomy and you're going to do whatever you feel like doing. That's the one I call the sovereign. And so the reason I don't use the word queen is because I've done too much archaeology work and too much work across cultures to be really happy saying, oh, look at me, I'm a queen. Because every sovereign nation had only one queen, but you could have a lot of sovereigns. You could have a lot of people who were maintained that autonomy. So let's see what's going on in the chat. Anything else? Yeah, Donna. Boy, we lost Donna Hennis just not very long ago. She was an amazing woman who led the wonderful parades in New York City, the seasonal parades. All right. So the point is, we can be these, but are we just one of these? That's going to be my next question. So what do you think? Are we just one of these at a time?
Oh, hell no.
I like that.
Okay. Tell me what.
Well, this is Mev. I've got my camera off, but I don't know. I think I can be Amazon warrior and midwife at the same time.
She can.
I can be seer and priestess at the same time. I can be a crone and all of those things except for daughter, maiden, mother at the same time. Even as a crone, I could still be a blood sister or a transformer or any of those things. So I don't think we're only ever just one thing.
No, I don't think we are either. I think it's kind of too bad to try to put us into one. It's a cumulative effect, says Kay. Yes, it is. And when I look at it, when you talk about being a warrior and a midwife at the same time, the example I gave you of Lozanne, who was the Apache warrior woman, she was a midwife and she was also a seer. So she fit three things at once, and she's the one who kept the U.S. Army away from Geronimo's band about half of the time they were running around in the Sonoran Desert. So she could stand up on a cliff somewhere and look around and say, oh, they're coming from that direction. And then they knew where to go. So, and Artemis, yes, Artemis was a warrior and a midwife. She was not only a warrior and a midwife, she midwifed her own twin, which just goes to show you something about Apollo, but, you know, who knows? So what about some of these others? What about, and we've added seer. Anything else you want to add? See if I missed anything in here. Creators and artists, yeah.
Valerie here, I'd like to add lover.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's nothing there that connotes kind of our love for other women. I mean, lesbian might be appropriate too. And lover doesn't have to just be sexual, but there should be something here, I feel, that's an archetype that connotes our love for other women.
That's
and also, I also think of archetypes not just for human experience, but for experience of the divine or of nature, and that's how I can relate to Mother Earth, or that we're all mothers of creativity in our human form. So I'm wondering why we don't even have goddess there to give a certain spirituality, whether it's spirituality of the divine archetype outside of human experience, or our relationship or our experience of being divine in ourselves.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's I think that's good. I didn't add goddess here just because it was, I guess I think of them as everywhere.
There's
And
one,
I work with the myths so much, so sometimes I'm working with a midwife goddess or a sorceress goddess or something, you know. So, but yeah, that's a really important one. I would like to. I think this chat will be, I hope, saved at the end, so I can copy some of these off that you all have mentioned and add them to my growing list of archetypes. The other thing I just want to say about the notion of when we can be these is I bet at least some of us have one friend who hit 70 years old or something like that and then fell in love or fell in love again. And I'm telling you, right at that moment, you are dealing with a 70-year-old maiden moving into her adolescence, right? I've been a 70-year-old adolescent. I know I've gone through this. So it's possible to go back and embody anybody we've been, I think. I mean, so what I'm doing as a disagreeable old woman, I'm not only poking a hole in graves, but I'm trying to poke a hole in the notion that these are disparate or that they fit neatly with a stage of life. I think we can do what we want when we want, by gum. Okay, what's the next slide? Yeah, so here's what Clarissa Pinkola Estes has to say. The crone is the one who sees far, who looks into the spaces between the worlds, and can literally see what is coming, what has been, and what is now, and what underlies and stands behind many things. So she's able to see not only what's right in front of her, but what might be hidden. The crone represents the ability to see more than just with one's eyes alone, but to see with the heart's eyes, the soul's eyes, through the eyes of the creative force and the animating force of the psyche. So this is her way of saying one of the things we get to claim if we want to is the ability to see and see differently. And this is just exactly that seer that Mev was mentioning, isn't it? This is the one who actually sees what's going on. And here's another definition. And this one is from Jean Shinoda Bolen. To be a crone is about inner development, not outer appearance. Thank goodness. A crone is a woman who has wisdom, compassion, humor, courage, and vitality. She has a sense of truly being herself. She can express what she knows and feels, and can take action when need be. She has learned to trust herself to know what she knows. So here again, this is about claiming an inner wisdom, which completely runs counter to those ideas that we saw in the first slide about the scary old woman, the worthless old woman. But it does touch on what the last one that was listed there, which was that it's a she, but that calling out against the crone wisdom is a way to try to keep people from non-conforming. It's a way to try to keep women from stepping out of themselves, right? Anybody have thoughts about either one of these definitions? You feel like you can see better these days in some ways? With the eyes of the heart?
I feel like as you get older, everything becomes so much clearer.
I think it does for me too. Yeah, and I guess it's partly this thing of my not having to do what other people expect, but it's also just part of taking things as they come. I find that I'm much more likely to be open to not knowing the answer. You know, at the same time I'm claiming my wisdom, I'm also willing to say, wow, I don't think I fully understand that.
I think that it's easy. I think that we also begin to understand truth and falsehood better.
Yeah.
That we have a real handle on that.
Yeah. It's kind of the it's the bullshit barometer, isn't it? It's the no, I don't, that's not true. I don't have to believe that. I don't have to think that. Okay, let's look at a couple of things. Jean Shinoda Bolen wrote this lovely book, which makes a nice set of. She wrote a book called oh, what is it now? Crones Don't Whine. So let's go to the next slide, and I will show you what her 13 Crone rules are. I also put them in the handout. So let's just respond to any of these. Anybody that has a response to any of these, either yes, I've got that, no, I don't. Crones don't whine. Crones are juicy. And crones have green thumbs. I can tell you right now, I do not literally have a green thumb. If I buy a plant, I look it right in the eye and plant it in the yard, and I say, all right, you claim to be a perennial. Now go out there and prove it, because this is the last you're going to see of me. And Jane says she does have a green thumb. What does that mean to you, Jane? Is it just with plants, or a green thumb in other ways too?
Unmute yourself, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, just unmute
Click
yourself.
on the button.
Yeah, I like to plant anything a plant really grows. I like having a garden. Sometimes I'm gonna expand my garden. So I like growing stuff. And I could grow, grow something in the ground that will grow. So yeah.
That's good.
And I bet you I think of myself kind of as like a kitchen, maybe kitchen crone, kitchen rich, whatever term you want to use, because I kind of use it in like different, having my herb garden and using different herbs for cooking and healing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm
Yeah.
into that part.
Yeah. Great. What about crones are juicy? Does this relate to anybody? What do you think it means?
They can be sexy if they want to be, anytime they want to be.
I
And
think so.
it doesn't have to be displayed. It doesn't have to be showing from one's apparel. It can be the quiet kind, the erotic kind.
Yeah. I think that's a piece we don't sometimes get to claim, because we're, people say, oh, that's past, and that. No. Thank you very much. No, it's not. And juicy also to me means that vital force of, oh, I can go out on a limb here. I can go do something silly I've never done before. I can try something different. See what it's like. What about the don't whine? I have a little trouble with this one, because I do sometimes whine, but what about it? What do you think maybe that's about?
I think we can all accept that life is on life's terms. It is what it is. And we don't have to whine about it, because we've lived long enough to know that there are consequences. That we take actions and that there are consequences, and we've learned how to live into our consequences.
Yeah. Chances are really good that if I'm in a fix, I got myself in it in some way, Even when we whine, we act. I like that. That's what Sally says. And Mev says, I don't whine, but I can bitch or kvetch. Now, the thing I do is, I'm from West Virginia, so we do it a little differently. I just get pitiful. You're allowed to get pitiful for about 10 minutes. And then you go look in the mirror and you say, this is really pitiful. And then you have to get on and do whatever you were going to do. Anything more about these, or shall we look at the next? Let's look at the next ones.
And we don't give in to mansplaining.
Oh no. Oh no.
We don't allow mansplaining to persuade us otherwise.
Exactly. Let them talk about what they know, whatever that might be. All right, Crohn's, here it is, right there. Crohn's trust what they know in their bones. And Crohn's meditate in their fashion, she says. And Crohn's are fierce about what matters to them. Any of these? I get pretty fierce. Yeah. Fierce is the first thing that comes to mind, especially if I think somebody's getting the short end of the stick somehow. It's less likely to be about something that happened to me than it is about somebody being silly with their dog or, not paying attention to what their kids are doing.
Yeah, and I would say too, the fierce part is like, I don't care if you think what I care about is unimportant. I still care.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't make me not care.
Right.
What about this meditate in their fashion? Now, I find this one real interesting because I'm not sure. I mean, not everybody meditates. I don't much meditate because truly, a lot of times people say, here's a nice tape. Why don't you meditate to that? And I just go to sleep. But that's a different issue. That's because of the way I take information in. But what do we do if some of us might really meditate, which is great. And what do the rest of us do? I take a walk with the dog.
I meditate while I'm walking. I meditate on nature when I'm out walking. And that is a form of my meditation. It always calms me down. It always takes me away from the everyday.
Yeah.
So in my fashion, I meditate.
Absolutely.
I get to very deep places. It always reaches a point in my meditation where I really do find my creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about taking control of that space. It doesn't have to be sitting down and focusing on a candle. Although if anybody does that, I'd be happy to hear about it. If you do a conventional meditation or have a routine. Ooh, staring at a bonfire. That's good. That's good. Okay. Oh, and what's this about throwing a tarot? Staring at a tree, Bev says, or sitting in a nice breeze, or throwing a tarot. So sometimes we rely on other sources for information that can take us to those deeper places. And I think tarot can be one of those for sure. Okay, let's go. Yeah, go ahead.
Sally said, taking a break in order to pause.
Ooh, yeah. Great, I missed that one, thank you. All right, so how about the next three? Crohn's choose the path with heart. They speak truth with compassion and they listen to their bodies. I don't have a whole lot of choice some days about listening to my body. So for me, the trick with that one is to listen to it with compassion. Right? I mean, it might not be anybody else's challenge with that one, but that's mine. To listen to it and not say, oh my gosh, I'm creaking around. But to say, thank goodness I can still get up and go walk the dog. Choose the path with heart. What does that mean to you?
It means you're compassion. I mean, you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or else why is it's not worth it, if you're not passionate about it.
You put your whole heart in it.
Right.
Exactly.
Sally.
Actually, I wanted to talk about listening to their bodies. As I age, I have really begun to understand how my mind lies to me, but my body tells the truth. My mind could be saying, oh, come on, Taylor, you can do this, go ahead. But my body says, slow down, sit down, take a breath. I mean, it's becoming increasingly stunning to me at how much my body would wear me ragged whereas my body is really on my team. It's the only one that is.
Yeah. Boy, isn't that the truth? Isn't it good to have a good partner like that that'll just tell you, hey, be realistic here, kiddo. And see, that to me, that's part of this second one here, which is speaking truth with compassion. Your body is speaking truth to you with compassion, and you're listening. That's the thing I have to, I do get myself into situations where, well, I've always helped people unload the truck. I should be able to do it again. Maybe not. So, just saying.
I choose to soften some of my direct confrontations. In other words, I used to be somebody who was kind of blunt. Oh, you better get your shit together kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then these days I'm understanding people are complex. They take the time to get to where they need to go. And so I don't need to tell that particular truth, and really being careful with who I entrust in my circle to tell my truth to.
Yeah.
Choosing my circle of people that those that I can tell the absolute truth, and those who I need to soften it a little bit.
Yeah. We become more discriminating, don't we? We're more likely to be able to, at least I am. At the same time, I am a lot less diplomatic than I used to be. I'm also not as, I guess blunt would be the word sometimes, that I find, I try to, there's a middle ground in there that I often utilize. Let's look at the last ones. I think they're the last ones here. Yeah. Crones improvise. Crones don't grovel. Crones laugh together, and they savor the good in their lives. So, see anything in here that looks good? I don't grovel anymore. I don't have time. Improvising to me means that I frequently have to adjust what I thought I was going to do. So I might as well be improvising. It's the same thing as unloading the truck. Maybe I don't unload the truck. Improvise. I can make anything out of nothing, says Mev. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea of laughing together and savoring the good in our lives, to me, those are just hugely important. All right.
The last one, crones savor the good in their lives, reminds me of going back to the beginning about crones don't whine, because I had been talking to a friend of mine about that, there's almost like a pushback of like, you shouldn't talk about anything even slightly negative that's going on in your life. Well, why not? But the point is, you don't want to whine. You don't want to go on and on and on about it. You want to act, and you want to savor the good in your life.
Yeah. I think I feel like I am now too old to overlook my shortcomings or the shortcomings of a situation. I mean, I can see it, but you're right. I don't have to dwell on it. I don't have to go there and stay there, because it gets in the way of this last one, of savoring the good in my life. If I can say, well, that didn't turn out quite the way I thought it would, it's okay. I can still savor the good in my life. I'm going to take a kind of a quick look at the rest of these slides and then pull us out of the slideshow. When can you become a crone? Okay, there are some people who use a calendar marker. Post-menopause, you can't be a crone until you've hit post-menopause. Some people in women's spirituality circles would say it's your second Saturn return, which is you're about 56 or 57. I don't subscribe to either of those, but I do think personal milestones, such as an illness that turned your life around, changed everything, caretaking of someone, a move, retirement, or something else. You can become a crone. You can enter into your crone rules and take on crone attributes anytime you like. For me, I had I had one community that said, no, it's your second Saturn return. You have to do it then. We can do something for you then. We'll have a croning. And I said, nope, not ready. And then that came and went. And then other stuff came and went. And then my father got sick. My mother had already passed away. And I was my father's primary caretaker for the last phase of his life, which taught me ever so much. And I don't regret any of it, of course. But after that, I was now the matriarch of my own tribe. I had no parents anymore. I was the orphan. So now it's time. Now I can focus on this. So anybody have any thoughts on this, or let's keep going and we'll come back to, all right. So a croning ceremony is the time that witnesses, honors, and celebrates a woman as she steps into her own version of the wise woman archetype, tapping into the crone's attributes of clarity, compassion, healing, and transformation. Who can do this? Any of your friends, right? If you have a spiritual circle, great. If you got a church, great. If you got a bunch of people you really want to do this for you, great. There are festivals. I know of a festival that every year, the first day you get there, they invite women who want to go through a croning ceremony to do some work before that. And then they have a croning ceremony as part of their program. You know, all of these things are good. All of these ways of getting there are fine. And the last slide is we can do crone celebrations for any of these folks. Any of these archetypes, which really are the passages that we go through on our way to becoming more of ourselves. Some of these fit, some of them don't fit. We can claim them. That's the main point I'm trying to make here, is that we can claim these. Can we take this off now and get us back to the group?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just see if anybody wants to talk about any of this now. So now we can stop the recording, I think, right?
Yes, JR.
Okay.